March 19th, right? All right. Good morning. I'd like to call the March 19th, 2019 County Board meeting to order. Let's stand and say the pledges. Did I say 19th? This is the April 2nd, 2019 Scott County Board meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have some amendments to the agenda that have been presented to us. First of all, item 8.2 has been revised, and we have that information here. And we have an add-on to the agenda that we will take towards the end from emergency management. So I guess I'd like a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended with those two items. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next, we'll move on to the minutes of the March 19th, there we go, 2019 County Board meeting. They were in your packets. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Madam Chair, I read the minutes, and I'll be happy to move their adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the March 19th, 2019 County Board minutes. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, now we move on to recognition of interested citizens. If you're here with something to discuss with the board that is not on the agenda, we invite you to the podium at this time. Each person or subject is limited to 5 minutes. See no one, we'll move on. And this is one of my favorite monthly items, is our recognition and welcome of new employees. We have 5 new employees with us this morning who I met with earlier. Some have been here just a couple of days, and some have been here about a month. So if we could have our 5 new employees come up to the podium, introduce themselves, and tell us a little bit about what they'll be doing and where they came from, that would be great.
I don't know how close I need to get here. Good morning, commissioners, everybody else in attendance. My name is James Hughes. Prefer to go by Billy, actually, to throw everybody off a little bit. Day 2 as a correctional officer in the Scott County Jail. I come from Dakota County. Previous work experience as a police officer and as a dispatcher.
Thanks, welcome.
Hi, I'm Mandy Flum. I'm from Belle Plaine, and I'm new to the transportation department. I am doing contracts for highway and other divisions. I come from, I did the jail for Scott County Jail for 7 years, and then I went to Carver County for a couple years, did civil process, and came back. So I'm happy to be here. So
Welcome back.
thank you.
Hello, my name's Nick. I just got hired to Scott County Jail for a couple weeks ago. I come from Blaine. I used to be hospital security for Centracare Health, and I did that at St. Cloud and Monticello Hospital, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mondale. Work at the jail, and before this, I used to work for Union Pacific Railroad. So the train that comes through downtown, blaring the horn, that was me a couple months ago. And happy to be here.
Great, thanks. And Mondale's last name is Law. I think that's really fitting for working in the jail. So thank you. Welcome, Mondale.
Hi, I'm Alex Peterson. I'm a family group decision-making coordinator with Health and Human Services. I come from Rochester, and before this, I worked on the Safe Harbor grants with Homestead County Victim Services.
Wonderful, thanks. Welcome, Alex. Welcome to all our new employees. I told them that even though we get to sit up here, it's those 743 employees who really do the work and deliver the services to citizens, so we're very appreciative. Glad you chose public service, glad you chose Scott County. We hope you'll have a long and lasting career here. So welcome and thank you. All right.
Should give them
Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have 14 items here that have been previously workshopped, discussed. Some have been worked on for the last year almost, and some have already been in front of our advisory committees. I will go ahead and read these items, and then the board will decide if they want to remove any or approve them all. So 6.1, approve the grant application and acceptance of the Center for Disease Prevention and Control State Physical Activity and Nutrition Moving Health Equity Data to Action Grant. That's a grant, I guess. Authorize the grant application to the Minnesota Department of Human Services for Community Living Infrastructure Grant Funding in the amount of $456,700 for July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2022. 6.3, adopt resolution number 2019-036, authorizing entering into a software license and maintenance agreement with ERP Accessories, LLC, doing business as Dashboard Gear, for the subscription for software licenses and support. 6.4, adopt resolution number 2019-039, authorizing an amendment to an agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates for design consultant services for the County Highway 27 reconstruction project in Credit River Township. Item 6.5, adopt resolution number 2019-041, authorizing entering into a design and construction cooperative agreement with Three Rivers Park District for trail pavement preventive maintenance at Cleary Lake Regional Park. Item 6.6, adopt resolution number 2019-042, authorizing entering into a design and construction cooperative agreement with Three Rivers Park District for vault latrine construction at Cleary Lake Regional Park. Item 6.7, adopt resolution number 2019-043, authorizing the acceptance of a Conservation Partners Legacy Grant Award and entering into a grant agreement with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources in the amount of $56,000. 6.8, approve the reappointment of Curtis Hennis of Commissioner District 4 to the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District Board of Managers for a term effective June 12, 2019 through June 11, 2022. And Mr. Hennis is with us today. Item 6.9, adopt resolution number 2019-038, approving the City of Jordan Local Water Management Plan dated February 2019. Item 6.10, approve the request for a conditional use permit to operate a private farm winery, Gregory L. Peterson, applicant and owner, in Section 1 of New Market Township. 6.11, authorize staff to issue a concrete and asphalt storage and recycling facility solid waste license to Valley Paving Incorporated at 9998 County Road 66, Belle Plaine, Minnesota 56011 in Belle Plaine Township. Item 6.12, adopt resolution number 2019-037, adopting the workplace health and safety policy and rescinding resolution numbers 79093, 86092, 87086, 90006, 93088, 2003-024, and 2004-22, which constitute former safety policies and guidelines. And 6.13, approve payroll processing of personnel actions. Guess we have 13 items on the consent agenda. Colleagues, any need to pull any items for further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Beard.
Madam Chair, I don't wish to pull 6.1 and 6.2, but I have a brief question for the administrator, if I may. Leslie, those are grants. If we have to do any hiring to fulfill those, will those be grant positions, or what can you do to help me understand what's going to happen with that money?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Beer, 6.1 is not a position. It's just dollars to help doing some of the work that we're currently doing in the position or in the community. 6.2, we have a current housing position, and this is asking to continue those funds to keep that position. Last year when we applied for this, we got the dollars for that one housing coordinator that works with some of the most vulnerable in our community. We're asking for some additional funds beyond that one position to help, and Pam could actually speak to it better than I could, but to help with some payments and things like that, and a second position to help coordinate. They would be shown as grant positions, and if we do not receive the dollars, we would not add additional personnel.
Madam Chair, that's sufficient explanation. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. Any other items for, that we need to have, discuss further?
I will move those 13 items on consent agenda.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 13 items on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, next we will move on to item 7.1, the presentation of certificates of appreciation to former members of citizen advisory committees. Usually Commissioner Beer would handle this item, but he is traveling and absent this week, so I will be doing that, and I'll go to the podium. The county board authorizes and appoints a number of citizens to citizen advisory committees that are very important in the work that we do. Not only do they give their input and experience to areas where they have expertise, but they're also a wonderful liaison to the community, talking with citizens and helping us understand the strategies. We just had a meeting last week where members of our advisory committees were here giving input on our strategic plan and strategic goals, and it's very much appreciated. Today we have a number of citizens who are leaving our committees, either because their terms are up. In one case, the committee is retiring itself, and we're moving that work to another department. We have several of those folks here that we want to show appreciation to, but I will be reading and recognizing all the people, even the ones who are not here. So first I'm going to start out with the All Hazards Committee. We have two members of the All Hazards Committee who are here today, and I'd love for them to come up here, Pat O'Laughlin and Crawford Wiesling. While you're on your way up, I'm going to tell the board a little bit about you. So Pat, who's coming up right now, Pat O'Laughlin served on the All Hazards Committee since the development of the committee in 2009. Pat Pryor served on the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Committee for 10 years before it was dissolved and the All Hazards Committee was formed. Pat brings a wonderful history of Belle Plaine and emergency management of the county. Pat has a special place in her heart for our EMS responders and always has been a strong supporter of our Morris A. Miller Awards. Pat recently helped update the guidelines and history for the Morris A. Miller Awards. She's seldom missed a meeting in her 10 years of service. So Pat, thank you for everything you've done. It's good to see you again, 2 weeks in a row. So here's your certificate.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
And Crawford Wiesling has been an active member of the All Hazards Committee since 2013. Crawford has a background as a firefighter and has a passion for our first responders. Thank you for your service as a firefighter. He helped to promote and review the Morris A. Miller Outstanding Service Awards and applications. Crawford brought a detailed and thoughtful approach to each discussion, and he continues to be an advocate for the recognition and appreciation of firefighters and first responders. So here's a certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have two members of the All Hazards Committee who couldn't be with us today. Chris Anderson served on the All Hazard Committee from January 2018. His past experience in emergency preparedness and desire to serve his community made him an asset to this committee. We hope to include Chris in future exercises, emergency management exercises. And then Dan Cronquist joined the All Hazards Committee in May of 2018. Dan has extensive knowledge in exercise planning and development. Dan was an active member of the committee, all while serving his country in the Navy. Dan has already reached out with areas of interest that he would like to continue to be involved in as opportunities become available. So we also thank Chris and Dan for their service to the All Hazards Committee. Obviously, later in the agenda today, we're going to talk about the flooding and emergency management, and it just details how important the work of these folks has been. So next, we're going to move on to the Community Development Agency. We have Mr. Ben Zwaber here today, who had a birthday recently, I hear. He must have turned Maybe it was a big 5-0 or something like that.
Would you believe 88?
I would not believe it, Mr. Zwaber. So Ben Zwaber was appointed to the Scott County Community Development Agency, what we call the CDA Board, in 2004, representing District 2. During his 14 years of service, Ben brought a unique and compassionate perspective in the development and administration of our CDA programs throughout Scott County. A highlight during his tenure was the construction of Market Village, a 55-plus independent living senior apartment community. It was built in cooperation with the county and Elko New Market. It includes the new library and the meeting space. It's a wonderful addition to that community. Ben's commitment to low and moderate income families, self-sufficiency, and economic growth initiatives will always be a cornerstone in the work for the CDA. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you for the support for the county for the CDA. We need more low-income housing.
We do.
And thanks for John. He was always liaison to the board. He's a class act.
He is. I'm trying to learn. From him.
Madam Chair, did he say lazy on or liaison?
There is some question.
We have two folks who are going off our Scott County Extension Committee. One of them is here today, Lloyd Frisky. So Lloyd, if you want to come up. Lloyd represents District 4, and he has served 3 consecutive 3-year terms on the Extension Committee from 2010 through 2018. Lloyd has been an active volunteer since his retirement, not only as a committee member, but also as a volunteer at St. Francis Regional Medical Center in Shakopee. Lloyd has been a valuable asset to the Extension Committee as he has helped to keep a focus on agriculture in Scott County, despite our proximity to the metro area. We are very appreciative of Lloyd's commitment to the Scott County Extension Committee. I served on that committee with Lloyd and know that he's took his job seriously and did a lot of good work on behalf of farmers and the agricultural industry in the county. So I really thank Lloyd for that work. So Lloyd, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. There you go. Good to see you. Madison Deal is not able to be with us today, but she was on the Extension Committee as a youth member. She was a 10-year Scott County 4-H member, and she served on the committee from 2016 through 2018. She was very active in the 4-H dog and horse projects, but also enjoyed exhibiting general projects at the fair. Madison is civically minded and gave valuable input. She is currently attending the University of St. Thomas, and we wish her the best in achieving her goals. We have several people who are exiting the Human Services Resource Council. I don't think any of them are here today, but I would like to recognize them. We have Katie Caro, who served on the Resource Council from January 2012 to 2013, and then came back in 2016. She represented District 3 in Shakopee. Her past experience on the board, Ramsey County employment, and desire to serve her community made her a great asset to the Scott County Human Services Resource Council. Trish Timmons joined the Human Services Resource Council as a resident of District 2 in January of 2015 and served 2 terms until she relocated to Dakota County in the fall of 2018. Trish was looking for a way to be involved in the community in which she lived and to help make a difference in Scott County. She was an active member of the committee and vocal about the needs of the community. Trish was invested in ensuring quality services for Scott County residents and will be missed on this committee. Karen Moore served on the Human Services Resource Council from 2009 to 2018. Karen is from Savage and served for District 2, but more recently, based on where she lived, she represented District 5. Karen said of herself, "I have contact with people who are in need of social services for physical or mental health reasons. I have people skills and am open, tolerant, and loving to all kinds of people with all kinds of backgrounds, strengths, and problems." These experiences and skills proved to be true and made Karen a tremendous asset to the Resource Council. She was an advocate for the people we serve. So we thank those 3 folks. We also have Woody Spitzmuller, who is exiting the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District Board of Managers. Is Woody here today? No, he's not. He's well known in the city of Prior Lake. He retired in December 2003 from Lockheed Martin. Since his retirement, Woody gave hours of time volunteering on many efforts. He has been on the Community Safety Advisory Committee since 2009 and is a member of the board for the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District since 2013. Woody also volunteers to teach boat safety to teens and young boaters. He spends February, March, and April each year volunteering free tax service through AARP in Prior Lake. Maybe that's where he is today. Woody is a go-to guy for help and knowledge and always willing to help with a smile on his face. And then we have two folks who are exiting the Scott Watershed Management Organization Planning Commission. Patricia Moen joined the Scott WMO in November 2011, representing the Sand Creek Watershed. Patricia was an active and contributing member through her service, and she understood and supported the need for public education and outreach of the community. Living on Cedar Lake, she was also very interested and supportive of our lake improvement projects and also implemented a shoreline restoration on her own property. Patricia served as vice chair during her terms, and her perspective and involvement on the committee was very much appreciated. And then finally, we have Joe Thill. Joe joined the Scott WMO in February 2007, representing the Sand Creek Watershed. Joe grew up in Jordan area in Sand Creek Township and served many years on the Watershed Planning Commission, serving as both chair and vice chair over the course of his service. Joe participated in public volunteer events hosted by the Scott WMO and was a strong advocate for making sure that the Scott WMO was clear about what the public benefit was to waters within the WMO. Joe's perspective and involvement on the committee was very much appreciated. So, again, colleagues, we want to thank these folks who served our county, who did a great job in advising these areas and being a liaison to the citizens. And we wish you well, and maybe you'll join another committee. Lloyd, maybe? So, thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to item 7.2, which is to adopt resolution number 2019-035, proclaiming April 7th through 13th, 2019 as Volunteer Recognition Week. And we have Kara Matson here to present.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kara Madsen. I am the Volunteer and Community Coordinator for Scott County. And the purpose of my presentation today is to give you a brief overview of the program and ask that you proclaim April 7th through the 13th Volunteer Recognition Week in Scott County. As we're working on the presentation here. So I wanted to start out with the mission of the volunteer program provides opportunities for community members to share their skills in order to enhance the variety and quality of services delivered by Scott County. So here's an example of some of the areas that we have volunteers currently in Scott County. These are the county benefits from our volunteers. They help out in all these different capacities in different areas throughout the county. And these are areas within our government umbrella. One thing that I did want to bring about is our community programs. We're working a lot more this year on reaching out in the community and trying to hold hands with a lot of different venues when I need volunteers, when they need volunteers, things like that. So for example, under community programs, we have our Project Community Connect, which is the homeless event that we do in September, along with our Adoptive Families for the Holidays. But we also have a lot of community members that reach out. For example, Prior Lake Savage does an ESL, English as a Second Language class in the evenings, and needed volunteers this last fall and reached out to me. She had about 2 people that were helping her. And we were able to bring in 8 volunteers for her, so she was able to fully staff all the classes that she had. Another example just came up this last week. I was contacted by a community member that had a junior high soccer team that needed to put in some community hours. That's something that their soccer league requests. And I reached out to Scott County Historical Society. They have a garden there that they're getting ready to bring up in the spring and summer. So this soccer team of about 12 individuals, along with their coaches, is going to come and help at the Scott County Historical Society. So some of the things that we have done this last year with the volunteer program, I think I spoke last year to a new database that we have currently for our volunteers that is helping out a lot in all different areas. I've been working on training a lot of the different departments throughout the government in regards to having direct access to this system. So there are certain departments that can directly access it if they so choose and key in activities, key in volunteer hours, do scheduling with their volunteers. Sheriff Reserve is a group that is utilizing it a lot, as are the libraries. So last year we rolled it out for the teen program in the libraries, and we just recently rolled it out for the adult program. So these are some areas that this new system is really working for us. Volunteers are able to report their own hours now online. They can still do it by paper and pencil if they so choose. But they can also schedule themselves for shifts. If they want to volunteer at the library and they're available on Tuesday from 3 to 4, they can go ahead and schedule themselves. So it's a great program that we are really just kind of tapping the surface on right now, and we're building this program as we move forward. Things that we're looking at for 2020 down the road, I am looking at recruiting quite a few volunteers. We have 2 things that are coming up, big things. We've got an emergency management exercise drill with public health coming up in 2020, and I need to recruit about 200 to 300 volunteers. And then we have another major full-scale exercise that we're doing in 2021 with the emergency management team that involves not only our emergency management team here at Scott County, but also cities and organizations in the county. So that one too, we're ramping up and looking for 300 plus volunteers. So for the next few years, I will be looking at recruiting volunteers for all sorts of things, but especially for this. So if anybody is interested, you can always go to our scottvolunteers.com website and sign up to be a volunteer, or you can go to the county website and just click on Get Involved and follow through to sign up for that. So I will be going around to businesses and community programs and chambers and the Optimist, talking about our program and working on recruitment specifically for these 2 things. So those are some big things going on. Here is just kind of a synopsis of what we did for 2018. So these are the hours, volunteer hours per department that we have currently been able to track. So these are the hours that each volunteer has recorded, whether they did that online or just let their the person that they were reporting to, let them know how many hours they were working. So as you can see, we started Sheriff Reserves, always seems to run top on that list. They do quite a few hours for us, helping us here in Scott County. And then just on down the list, you can see the different hours. So with that, we had 1,101 volunteers this last year that gave us 34,082 hours. So the value to Scott County was $8,041,484. And the way we came to that is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics gives out an hourly number, an hourly wage, so to speak, each year. And the wage for last year was $24.69 an hour. So that's how we came to the 841,000. So this is updated every year at the end of April. So at the end of April, in a couple more weeks, I will get the new number for 2019. So with these statistics and these hours that are reported, we do know, however, that many of our volunteers do not report their hours. So they feel that they are giving back to the community and it's a gift. So we appreciate that. I still try to grab those hours from them, but it's not always possible. So this number is probably a lot higher. But we do know, however, that the biggest value to Scott County is that our volunteers are great ambassadors to the county. So with that, I am asking you today to request the adoption of Resolution 2019-035, proclaiming April 7th through the 13th, 2019 as Volunteer Recognition Week. Do you have any questions at this point?
Just a comment, and you're aware of this comment, of what I'm going to say. A few years ago, churches asked to receive a State of the County presentation, and there was probably 40 or so people, maybe 50, I don't know, in this room, maybe half a dozen churches at the most, receiving a State of the County presentation. And I don't know that we in the county did as good a job as we could. We didn't probably fully understand what the churches were looking for. What they were really looking for is, how can they help? How can they help in the community? How can they help the county? What are the needs? That was what they were looking for, and I think we gave them more of a ins and outs of the workings of the county rather than how can they help presentation. Well, anyhow, this fall, Fish is going to be wanting to partly sponsor this and re-engage this interest in this effort, and I was thinking that if the chair could be involved and our administrator could be involved and Cara could be involved in this effort, at the start, at least those three, in terms of presenting, I think this would be a really great opportunity to, when you ever say 200 or 300, you would be a great fan of what I'm proposing, I'm sure. So anyhow, hopefully can work on that together and look forward to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Otto. Definitely, we need to do that. Commissioner Beard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know how I've referred in the past to the strength of Scott County is in its citizens and the things we do for each other, whether it's just because we do or because we work through an organized effort like we have Cara taking care of for us. So having said that, I'd be happy to offer Resolution 2019-035 and urge its adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I just want to say thank you to all our volunteers. You do make a true difference in the work that we do, and it makes everything we do better. So, and thank you, Cara. This is great information. Wonderful to see the statistics and all the work that's being done. So, any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll be moving on to item 8.1. Item 8.1, we have Pam Selvig, who will be presenting on the 2017 Minnesota County Human Service Cost Report.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good morning. Thank you, Pam Selvig, Health and Human Services Director here in Scott County. I have an absolutely riveting topic here for you this morning. The 2017 Minnesota Human Services Cost Report. First of all, I'd like to just do a quick call out to Evan Cole. He works in the Human Services Division and really takes what's over a 100-page report and synthesizes that for us and puts it together in a kind of understandable format, I hope. Very briefly, this is our agenda this morning. We'll be talking basically about what the cost report is, the services covered, how we compare to other counties, and what it means to our citizens. The Human Services Cost Report is actually issued annually. It comes out later, much later. Obviously, we're in early 19. For the prior year, it actually came out a little later than usual this year. It provides cost and revenue sources for all human service programs. The revenue sources statewide in 2017 were 48% federal, 45% state, 6% county. For Scott County, the breakdown was similar, but slightly less at the county level, with 49% federal, 46% state, and 4% county. The per capita reporting means that the dollars spent are divided by the population to show the dollars spent per person in the county. This allows an apples-to-apples kind of comparison. This next graph basically shows the increase in spending. As you can see, we've grown significantly since 2011. During this time frame, the combined federal, state, and county spending has been up in Scott County, 59%, while spending in all of Minnesota has been up 34%. Scott County's portion of that total spending has increased by 36% over the same time period, or $8.4 million for the county. Next, the cost report's broken down into 3 different areas by 3 different major program areas, which are the support programs, healthcare, and social services. Statewide, this spending was $14.5 billion, and for Scott County, it was $217 million. Just the other thing I wanted to point out on this graph, I think oftentimes people think of the primary drivers and human services spending is some of our income support or welfare programs. And as you can see, the primary drivers for these costs are actually related to healthcare and to our social service programs. Couple highlights of the overall of the report in 2017. Scott County had the 3rd lowest per capita spending overall amongst the 87 counties at $14.97, and we actually had the lowest per capita county portion in the state at $58.
Madam Chair, Pam, can I ask a clarifying question? Yes. On that bullet point right there. So what you're saying is that per capita, we allocate almost $1,500 per person into our Health and Human Services program, but only $58 of that comes from the local property tax base. The rest is, I assume, pass-through from state and federal money?
Yep. Madam Chair, Commissioner Beard, you're absolutely correct. So the primary costs for Health and Human Services program are with state and federal funds. We've certainly seen increases, but that cost is only $58.
Okay. Madam Chair, it was important to make that point and underscore it because of some comments I've gotten in the community. I just wanted people, again, to be aware that we act as the agency basically for the state and federal government's programming, and we pass it through and administer. But very little of that cost actually comes from our property tax base.
Commissioner Beard, you're absolutely right. Very little does. And many of the programs, to be honest, are actually paid right to healthcare providers or right to recipients. And I'll talk just a little bit about that as we break that down. But we do have some costs related to the administration of some of these programs. Yes. But yes, most of it's paid by state and federal dollars. And the other point I just wanted to make with this slide is our cost per capita is $58. The average across the state, the average on this issue, on this point is $148. So our cost per capita is $90 less than the average for the state.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's part of the point I wanted to have made.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So then we'll talk just a little bit about this. So this goes into a little bit of Commissioner Beard's point. So state and federal programs for the support programs, that's basic income and food support. Counties pay a portion to administer this program, but the citizens' benefits are paid directly by the state. In this particular area, Scott County was the 3rd lowest in per capita cost at $87 and was tied for the lowest in the state with a county share of $9. Counties are reimbursed for administrative costs at 50% for the federal income support programs and 66% for child support programs. This chart actually shows a little bit of a comparison on the cost, overall costs through both the metro counties and counties with a similar population. The metro counties are the right, the similar population counties are on the left. Poverty level obviously plays a significant factor in the costs in these areas, as you'll see some of our some of the counties with more similar demographics as Washington and Carver also have fairly low costs in these areas. The healthcare programs, again, this is where we see the highest costs. State and federal programs provide healthcare coverage for low-income individuals and the disabled and the elderly. In this area, Scott County was the third lowest in per capita cost at $913 and was tied for the lowest in county administrative cost at $5 per capita. This program has really seen a significant increase since the Affordable Care Act. This graph shows the growth actually since 2011. There's been a 7% increase in the state average per capita cost of public health care. Scott County has actually seen a 57% increase in the same time period. As all of you know, these growth in healthcare costs pose a significant budget issue both at the state and federal level. Much of the biggest drivers in this area happens to be skilled nursing care and the medical assistance waivers for the elderly and the disabled. This graph shows the number of healthcare recipients and how we've seen growth since the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Last year, the board actually asked for a breakdown of what that population looks like and who that is serving. So this is a new chart. You'll see the first graph on your left is the number of people eligible, or the people eligible. So total eligible is 23,443, and it's a breakdown kind of by category. As you can see, the biggest population piece are families with children at 70%. But if you look at where our costs are, the disabled, so families with children, it's I believe it's right around $3,000 per person, where serving those with disabilities, it's almost $44,000 per person. So the first graph shows the number eligible. The second one actually shows the cost per person. And then this last graph shows kind of where the total cost is. So roughly about 56%, the total cost is about $177 million for Scott County, and about 56% of that is for the elderly and the disabled. Social service programs, those are our mandated programs to serve some of our most vulnerable. It includes adult and child protection, mental health, developmental disabilities, and the elderly. There is a lower state and federal funding in this area, which does require a little bit higher county contribution. In this area, Scott County has the second lowest per capita at $497. And actually the third lowest county portion at $45. This compares to, sorry, I'm not keeping up with my notes. I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. Oh, no, here it is. Sorry. The statewide county portion average in this area is $114 compared to $45 for Scott County. In this area, it does vary. Whoops. What did I do? Deb, I lost my screen. Sorry. Thanks. Sorry. Oh, it went way far ahead. I bet you'd like that. Okay, in this area, expenditures do vary quite a bit. The biggest driver tends to be children's services as well as mental health. Those two areas actually make up about 68% of our spending in social services. One of our big cost drivers, I think you've seen this before, tends to be our out-of-home placement. And you can see where that's really taken us the last couple of years. Our child protection assessments went from 372 in 2011 to 678 in 2017, an 82% increase, which has thus resulted in more children in out-of-home placement. We just continue to see, and these numbers actually, to be really frank, have gone up in 2018 as well. We see a high incidence of drug-addicted parents with young children have really contributed to our high rate of out-of-home placement. But one, even though we have seen this certainly here in Scott County, it's not unique to Scott County. We actually have one of the lowest per capita rates in the state of out-of-home placement. I believe in 2017, we actually had the second lowest placement rate of placement per 1,000 children in the state. So kind of what does this tell us? For at least the past 10 years or much longer, Scott County has been the lowest or near lowest per capita cost for human services in Minnesota. We're consistently providing these services these required services at low cost to residents compared to other counties. This data is not to say, however, I don't want this to say that we aren't meeting the needs of our residents or we aren't providing good services, because I believe we are. I believe some of our outcome data shows that we continue to provide good services in these areas. You have seen much of our outcome data over the last few years in Scott County Delivers in various programs. I've included just a few of those slides to kind of continue to show. This doesn't mean even though we have low spending, I think we really strive to do that most efficiently and try to keep the cost down for taxpayers. So I just wanted to include a couple of the slides. So this is child support delivered annually through our child support program. It shows that in 2017, we distributed over $12.5 million to families in Scott County. Our child support unit has consistently met state and federal standards on these measures, have consistently exceeded. Some of the things they look at is the number of cases where we have paternity established, the number of cases where an order is made, that a judge has made an order for child support, and then how much we collect. And even though we show a slight decrease here in 2017 in terms of the actual dollars, we did collect 80% of the orders out there, which exceeds both the state and the region on that particular measure. This shows our our child maltreatment rate. As you know, child protection is involved with children when there is abuse or neglect. This shows that the children we work with are consistently safe within their families through the services they receive. The federal standard is 9.1% of children should not have a repeat maltreatment finding within 12 months. And as you can see, we've consistently met that measure. This measure speaks to rapid response to requests for cash assistance and SNAP. It's really critical to our citizens receiving timely access to the benefits they need. Again, this graph shows that we continue to meet the state average on that measure as well. This one I think you actually saw recently. This is the graph shows that 78% of adults eligible for MFIP, for the cash assistance or the diversion work program, that they are off cash assistance and working at least 30 hours per week, 3 years after their baseline quarter. So again, this measure, again, we have exceeded state performance standards on this as well. So generally, the cost report provides us a lot of data. It provides us a lot of comparisons to other counties. It doesn't really qualify need or capacity, and a lot of those things are influenced by demographic conditions, economic conditions, and taxing capacity. Much of the human services spending overall, poverty plays a huge, huge piece of that. So the wealth of this county and our low poverty level relates to many of the services in terms of our low spending. But I want to say, in terms of the county portion of that cost, I think a lot of that does have to do with the efforts and the work of our staff to try to continually be cognizant and to try to contain costs wherever we can. We're always looking at ways to reduce things and how to do things differently. And so I've included this time a few of those kind of efforts. And to be frank, they don't all line directly nicely with 2017, but they're all things that in the last couple of years, at least certainly since I've been in this role, that we've really looked at and tried to make efforts around containing those costs. We have a grant accounting unit, and staff play a big part in making diligent efforts to bill for all eligible services, and that we're capturing any available revenue, whether that's through state and federal funding or through insurance or through the client themselves. We make diligent efforts to capture whatever revenue we can. And in recent years in the income maintenance program, we had, this is a bit complicated, I'll try to simplify it, some of our reimbursements through what's called a random moment time study, we had kind of been lumped together with a bunch of other counties on that random moments time study. And we knew and felt like our staff were kind of doing their part and we're making sure we're capturing those hits and that kind of thing. We asked the state to be what's called a standalone county, to do our hits separate than this kind of pool of counties. And we did that back in 2015, and the last, our 18 revenue is $300,000 more than it was in 15. It really proved that it was beneficial for us to do that. We've done some contracted case management to not add staff, to reduce our costs there. I think you're all familiar with what we've done with New Options. The move to PROACT was long-term, looking at a cost savings method. In public health, we've looked to do some video-directed therapy, monitoring our TB clients, which saves time and transportation costs. As you know, you saw a couple today. We had to look for grants wherever we can. And our performance in a number of areas really allows us to capture some incentives that aren't necessarily been available to all counties. Both in the income maintenance area, we've been able to gain some incentives, as well as the withhold funding and the child protection money. So kind of in summary, I want to share, I believe we continue to provide quality services in this area to our residents, but continue to do that at a lower cost than many of our other counties, and I'd be willing to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Pam. Do we have any questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Beard.
I have just a couple of questions. When you, Pam, thank you for the good report. But when you take all the things into account that are done for our citizens, I'm assuming you're not accounting like 360 Communities or the work of FISH or the work of the CAP agency, or I'm aware of at least 2 churches in town that have pretty robust, they call them benevolence kind of situations. They're kind of their own little private Social Security net. None of that counts in here. This is only what directly goes through our government efforts, correct?
Yep, Madam Chair, Commissioner Beard, you're actually correct, but you actually brought up a really good point. So those kinds of things wouldn't necessarily be reflected in here in terms of our costs or our revenue, but I think FISH is a really good example. Our social, Commissioner Albrecht knows, many of you know our social services are one of our primary users of the FISH network and really try to access and support families' needs through some of those kind of opportunities. So you are correct, it wouldn't be reflected here, but they perhaps in many ways help contribute to our lower costs.
That's an important point for the taxpayers to recognize that because of the nature of our citizens, they just give from their heart because it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And it actually has a benefit on the cost of government. When people do the right thing,
yep,
the cost of governing ourselves goes down. That's an important principle to remember. One last question about the out-of-home placement. You know, that's always a very emotional, very touchy subject. 2 questions. Did Scott County have a higher than average quotient of what we would call intact families, mom, dad, and kids, the stability factor, or can you quantify that? The second part of the question is, when you do out-of-home placements, are we trying to do those with blood relations, or do we have a foster network that we immediately put children into? 2-part question.
Good questions, Commissioner Beard. I think the first one I'm going to have a little bit of trouble with those kind of demographics in terms of, so you're asking, do we have a higher network of intact families?
Yeah, and from my previous experience, I've noticed that where we tend to have the most issues with poverty, with child neglect and so on, we have a higher percentage of broken homes, or what we used to call broken homes, single moms, single dads. People didn't even know who their parents were, maybe living with a neighbor or a friend, children.
Yeah.
In that kind of a situation where it seems to me, just in observing our neighborhoods, we have a lot more stability with more of a traditional family model. And that seems to be beneficial to the cost of society in general.
Yeah. Commissioner Beard, you may very well be right. I don't know
But
that
we
I
don't
have those kind of
quantify it. Okay,
demographics
that's just
for
all I
you
wanted to know.
available. In terms of your second question, I can answer pretty easily, and I don't have the exact number with me. We make tremendous efforts to place with relatives in kin first and out of home placement. We do have a network of foster care providers when we can't. That is actually a state measure the state looks at in terms of your percentage of placement of the family. And we have consistently exceeded that standard as well. I want to say our performance in that area is like 46%, but again, we far exceeded that state standard. It's best for kids if they can be with grandma, grandpa, or aunt and uncle, and we certainly make those efforts first and foremost.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Ulrich.
Yeah, I'm curious, well, first of all, great report and great work, being efficient and yet providing high-quality services to people in need. I'm interested in the foster care providers. I know that's not really your report, but I'm very interested in that, and I would almost like a standalone presentation of that. I mean, when I see us advertising in a movie theater for foster care providers, it tells me we must be really short of foster care providers. And so if you could showcase the need and present what a foster care program to us, and it could be on our highly watched streaming and on cable or whatever. I don't know how many really watch it, but anyhow, I'd like to hear more about that.
We'd love to do that, Commissioner Beard. We have done some additional. Oh, I'm sorry.
I see how you could make the.
Yeah, no, sorry, Commissioner Albert.
That's right.
Yes, we'd love to do that. We have done trying some new and creative things to kind of both of your points align so well. We really look to do relatives first, if possible. Not all kids are, is that a possibility? And we have been struggling with our other, our traditional foster homes and have seen an increased need there, especially for older kids.
Okay. By the way, have you seen that movie yet, Instant Family?
I haven't yet.
Yeah,
I'll work on that.
It's on the whole issue of.
Yep, you had mentioned that to me before,
Yes, I
yes.
Do you have anything? All right, thank you, Pam. Really a good report, as everyone said, and I think, and I just really congratulate you and all your staff, because efficiency, the efficiency is groundbreaking. And I think we forget, and other citizens forget, you're dealing with all those federal and state regulations, different computer programs, different reporting requirements, and that makes it just incredible that you can be as efficient as you are. Just since our last board meeting, I did receive a letter from Commissioner Tony Laurie congratulating Scott County Department of Human Services for meeting all reporting requirements for calendar year 2018, saying that all key quarterly fiscal reports for all the programs in our county were submitted on time and in perfect order, it says. Perfect order. So congratulations and thank you to you and your staff for that, and know that we did get that correspondence saying that you did everything perfectly. Wow, that's good. That doesn't always happen from the state. And the other thing that I really appreciate, and we did see on the agenda today, is the staff's ability to find and get grants to do the work that maybe we wouldn't be doing anyways, because we want to keep these costs down and really be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. That money's out there, and I really thank and congratulate your staff for getting that money back to our county and being able to use it in the best way possible. So thank you. Excellent report.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 8.2, adopt resolution number 2019-045, awarding the sale of general obligation capital improvement plan and refunding bonds. We have Danny Lentz here to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Danny Lenz, Deputy County Administrator. I also have with us our financial advisor, Kathy Aho with Baker Tilly. I'm just going to make a few comments and turn it over to her for more detail on this. At our February 19th board meeting, the board did authorize the issuance of bonds. This covers our GC2 building, the new building construction, as well as Justice Center and GC1 renovations, Clear Lake Maintenance Facility replacement, Highway Warm Storage Facility, several roof replacements, Marshall Road Transit Station elevator modernization, and a Public Works HVAC radiant heater. We did have our ratings call on March 22nd, and we received our rating on March 28th that reconfirmed our AAA bond rating from Standard & Poor's, which we are very proud of. And then we had our bond bids April 1st yesterday, where we had 9 bidders, which Kathy informed me earlier that's the most we've ever had for one of our bond issuances. And the low bidder was Robert W. Baird and Company. And the winning bid was at 3.05% total interest cost, which is actually almost 0.5% lower than what we had included in our recommendation when we came to you at that February board meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy for some more detail.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good morning. If it took you back a little when he introduced me as being from Baker Tilly, we combined with that firm yesterday.
Oh.
So it's kind of an exciting day at Springstead for a lot of different reasons, but one of them was certainly the results that we had for your sale. I just wanted to give you a couple comments on the bond rating for both the benefit of you and those that might be listening. A credit rating comes from a nationally recognized statistical agency, and there are several of them. You chose Standard & Poor's, who has rated your bonds in the past. That bond rating translates directly into interest cost savings. If you have an A rating, it's better than a triple B rating. A double A is better than an A, and a triple A is like your kid being on the honor roll, the A honor roll. It's the highest rating that you can get. It's a combination of factors that measures the socioeconomic stability and health of your community. It also measures management, financial management, and policy management of the county. And hidden within that AAA rating is a separate rating that S&P does on management itself. And you have moved up in this category, so you are now also at the very highest, which is a very strong management rating, which reflects strong financial policies and practices under a very specific methodology that S&P establishes. So congratulations on both fronts. It's something to be proud of. The rating report, this I found kind of humorous when I was talking with the analyst afterwards. He said, you know, they're in the top rating category, and so we always have to come up with something that could make the rating go down and put that in the report. So the thing that they chose was debt, which I found was very interesting, because his comment was also the county is really pretty well situated. They're quite low in terms of their debt ratios compared to other counties. But we put that in because it could change at some point in the future. But otherwise, the overall, you also have been designated as a AAA stable, which means that in their opinion, they would not expect that rating to change for several years. So all very, very complimentary things for the county. The sale itself was a joy. We did get 9 bidders, as Danny mentioned. The interest rate being so much lower than the recommendations, when we give you the recommendations, we try to give you an accurate picture of what you might expect in the market at that time. And if you recall, the reason that we accelerated the sale of these bonds is that we were afraid of what was going to happen in the market and wanted to capture what were good interest rates at that point. The market has continued to improve, and so you played directly into that. And that 3.05 is, again, quite a bit lower. What that means is that compared to the recommendations, which you felt was a finance plan that you could live with here at the county, you saved over $8.6 million in debt service costs compared to what we showed you at that period in time. Part of that is, and part of this issue is a rather small refunding component. And we had projected that you would save just under $550,000, and you actually saved close to $624,000. So what all of that let us do is reflected in the schedule. You wanted to not have to increase your overall levy in order to accommodate this issue. Not that the debt doesn't cost something, but with the overall financial management plan of the county, we were able to achieve that. We were able to also accelerate the year at which the debt service requirement drops. And it also drops by over $400,000 from what we were originally projecting. So it's just a terrific result for the county, and we would recommend that you make the award to Baird. One other comment, once the bids were received, there was a premium that was offered. We were targeting $69 million in proceeds. We were able to achieve that and reduce the size of the issue at the same time. So there's a notation on the bottom of the yellow sheet that's in front of you. The issue was actually reduced to $77,430,000. That in turn, we maintained the compensation to the underwriter at the ratio that they had in their original bid. So that was decreased, and there's a modest change in the TIC to a 3.0557. So if you're seeing some numbers as we go along that are a little different from what was in the bid, that's the explanation for that. I'm happy to stand for any questions, or Danny as well.
Thank you, Danny and Kathy. Excellent news. I don't know that we could have hoped for even any better. Any discussion or questions?
I would just add that I talked to Danny this morning. It was nice to get this news rather than a 0.5% higher.
Yeah.
And that, because each 0.1% costs us tens of thousands. So this is awesome. So thank you.
Other comments or questions?
With that, Madam Chair, I will move to adopt resolution number 2019-0545, awarding the sale of general obligation capital improvement plan and refunding bonds in the original aggregate principal amount of $78,660,000.
Second that, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt this resolution, 2019-045. Any further discussion, questions, or comments?
Is that the right dollar amount?
I don't know if we're
The
supposed to
dollar
use that one or
amount,
that
should we
seven.
use the 77,430,000?
430?
Is that what we should be doing instead?
Madam Chair, that is the correct amount, but I believe that the way that the resolution is written, it referred to the original.
That's correct.
So, yes.
So you actually have a new resolution that we handed out today?
But it's not on the screen. Okay. Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yep, and so it'd be this one, resolution 2019-045, and it does have the lower amount of $77,430,000 in that resolution.
I will amend my motion to the $77,430,000.
Okay,
I'll
here we
second
go.
the motion,
Yeah.
resolution.
I'm sorry, I was reading out this.
Yep, right here. Good catch. Thank you, Commissioner Beard. Any other? Oh, Commissioner Ulrich.
Yeah, Ulrich.
They look the
Thank
same.
you. Yeah.
Again, I understand how.
Like the Muppets over there.
The resolution itself is correct. It's the cover sheet of the RBA that
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you. I know this just had to get done in the last less than 24 hours, so thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. I'm gonna hit the gavel on that one.
Let the digging begin.
All right, thank you. We are on to item 8.3, adopt resolution number 2019-046, authorizing Government Center 2 bid package number 1, contract awards, and the rejection of fire suppression and electrical work scopes. Joe Wida, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Today, I stand before you to adopt Resolution 2019-046, authorizing Government Center 2 bid package, number 1, contract awards, and the rejection of fire suppression and electrical scopes for the Government Center campus project. As you know, this project dates back to several years, 2016-17, where we studied the present and future space needs for our visitors, customers, and employees. In that study, we identified several county-owned buildings that were currently struggling with the space and future needs, which included things like the immediate need for, courtroom construction, renovation of the mental health center, along with consolidation of many services to the Government Center campus in downtown Shakopee. This new building is projected to provide adequate space for the next 22 years while improving culture, reducing travel, and avoiding continued shuffling of staff from distant locations, which continues to increase operational costs and staff moves. In January of 2018, Wold Architects and Engineers were selected to complete the design of the new GC2 building, along with renovations of the Justice Center, Government Center 1, as well as the warm storage facility. Wold, along with several different employee committees, have been working for the last year or so to complete the design while making sure the needs of each division is met and within reason. Also, while working through the design process, Kraus Anderson was selected in April 2018 to provide construction management services for this project. So today is the first of a few contract approvals that will be coming before you as part of this overall project. This first phase today, the project contract award, includes things like the site clearing, earthwork, site utilities, which is relocating a portion of the tunnel, sewer and water connections, HVAC and communication lines between the Justice Center and Government Center, the demolition of the Conference Center and the adjacent house, the construction of a new parking lot where the Conference Center and house currently exist, expansion of the parking lot north of the Law Enforcement Center, which will include the installation of some stormwater pretreatment and infiltration infrastructure. A piece of that stormwater project with that lot, we had originally included a partnership with the city of Shakopee to help relieve some of their stormwater infrastructure issues that they're having with their downtown area. We were notified last Wednesday afternoon that they were opting out and withdrawing from the project. We learned this morning from Administrator Vermillion that we only had received 2 bids for their portion of the work, so they're a little bit leery of that, even though they were below engineers' estimates. So they are pulling out for that, but we are leaving some options open for other projects they're considering with, like in our big lot, parking lot A, out to the west here. That may have some viable options for them as we move through this whole project process. Work with the first package also includes the pavement resurfacing of existing lots, along with the church lots that we have an agreement to utilize for our parking needs as we move forward. So March 7th, we received 19 bids for this first project, and we are recommending approval of the contracts for the plumbing, the HVAC, site clearing, earthwork, and site utilities, along with the asphalt paving and site concrete. We are recommending that the work scopes for the fire suppression and electrical work be rejected. The fire suppression, we didn't receive any bids, and the low electrical bid was incomplete. Kraus Anderson is currently working on obtaining quotes for both of these items, and they're both estimated to fall within the quote criteria. So they'll obtain 3 quotes, and we'll move forward from there with those items. So with all that being said, again, we're asking you to adopt resolution number 2019-046, authorizing Government Center 2 bid package number 1 contract awards for the Government Center campus project for a grand total of $3,828,135 and reject the fire suppression and electrical work scopes. So any questions?
Thank you, Joe. Commissioner Beard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joe, I'm disappointed that Shakopee isn't participating in that first stormwater plan we made available to them. I thought that would have been a great project for us to collaborate on and actually do some good work in the downtown. But do I understand you're saying that we're keeping some options open for them going forward as this unfolds over the next 2 or 3 years, where they can come back and participate and actually do some good work there?
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioner Beard. So as far as what we have with the lot north of the LEC, it'll really, unless they move really quickly and can coordinate with our contractor, that one may be off the table. But we did leave a portion of the resurfacing of our big lot A between Scott and Atwood available so that within the time of our project, they wish to participate and utilize some of our parking lot for that infrastructure. We'll work with them to do so.
Good. Madam Chair, I'm glad to hear that we're doing that, and we'll maybe try to encourage them to come along with us on this project, because this is pretty significant to downtown Shakopee, this whole project. Really is. Madam Chair, I'm happy to offer Resolution 2019-046, authorizing Government Center bid package number 1 with the exceptions that Joe talked about, and urge its adoption.
Second.
Right, it's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 2019-046. Other discussion, questions, or comments? I guess I would just like to comment, thank you for showing us that these bids came in a little bit more than our estimate than expected, but we know or hope that in bid package 2, we'll be able to recoup those dollars and stay on budget. Is that correct?
That is correct. The estimates with Shakopee pulling on lowers a little bit more. Wold and I had a meeting with the city of Shakopee yesterday, working on some things with the next package where we're going to be able to lower costs. So remember, this is a pretty short contract award for these folks. They're going to be on site for maybe 6 months. The next round of bidders is going to be here for 2 years, so it's going to be a lot more appetizing to those contractors. So we're really confident we can make up the difference.
Good, thank you.
Related to the timeline, Madam Chair, Joe, when, I'm sure the average citizen that's coming here to stand in line at the service center is wondering when the little the parking lot we have right up front for folks doing business here, when will that be torn up? How long can people
I believe
still
we were
use that?
looking at mid-June, but I'll point to Dave from Grouse Anderson. Mid-June.
Mid-June,
Yep.
so we'll have the new facility across the street ready to go, or? are we
No,
gonna
so the
completely
customer
reorient the
parking will be in the back here, behind the link.
Yes.
Once the link is demolished, there'll actually be separate entrances if you're going to court through the Justice Center and to customer service or Health and Human Services into the Government Center.
Thank you.
Further questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Good job. Now we'll move on to our additional agenda item. We have Scott Haas presenting, and we are being asked to adopt resolution number 2019-047, declaring a state of emergency in Scott County due to flooding of creeks, rivers, lakes, and land in Scott County. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. 2 weeks ago, I was here talking before the board, presenting an overview of where flooding risk was within Scott County. We were already experiencing some immediate impacts in the city of Jordan due to ice jams that displaced a number of residents. I'm happy to report that all those residents have been restored into their homes and their pets are back with them. And we're on we're taking the right steps to get everyone back to the lives they had prior to this action. However, a few things have changed from the original forecast. We've had a very crazy dry season that's highly unexpected by the hydrologists and the Weather Service. We haven't had any significant rain since that time, and very abnormally we've had a very slow, safe melt. It's, as the hydrologists have described it, it's the perfect melting situation. We've had no significant additional precipitation. We've had warm days with warm sunshine that's melted snow and then refreeze at night. Very, very good to reduce our ongoing flood risk. With that being said, the current projections are being updated and our risk moving forward is lowering. So as the water from the rivers is decreasing, we're expecting a second wave of water that may come as more melt comes from south and west of us. However, the impacts of that second crest is not expected to be anywhere near as significant as it was originally feared to be. So we've had very, very positive news coming from the Weather Service and the predictions of what our upcoming weather is looking like. Having said that, I will also state that up through April, we're still in a high risk of flash flooding, specifically due to the deep frost layer that we have in the soil still. It's starting to come out in areas. We can see that around the county where we're starting to see that frost come out of the ground. But as long as we have this very deep frost layer, if we have a heavy rain event, there's still nowhere for that water to go, and we can expect a lot of runoff to occur. that water is going to go into our retention ponds, our lakes, and into the river very quickly, and that could cause us to be right back in a flooding or risk or a flooding emergency, and we could have some significant impact to people's lives at that point. Obviously, we're hoping that that does not happen, and we have a continuous and steady, slow melt, and that the frost does come out of the ground so that the ground can soak up any kind of rain and precipitation that we do receive. Just to give you an update on where we are from a total damage in the county. We've been collecting damages from townships, from the cities, also from Minnesota Valley Electric Co-op. State law changed with the Disaster Assistance Fund back in 2016 or 2017 that allowed rural electrical co-ops to apply for disaster aid if the county that they are serving in is in a declared emergency. So what this does is allows that state disaster assistance program to help fund some of the loss that those rural electrical co-ops have to avoid having them shift all that cost onto their customer base, which ends up being our citizens anyhow. So the thinking is that since the dollars would ultimately be forced onto the citizens, it's similar to an impact to a government or nonprofit, and as a result, they do become eligible to join us in accepting disaster aid. Federally, that has been in place for some time, but when the state disaster aid program was established, they were specifically excluded until such time as we could get some, really the state could get some tread and understand what was the real impact. The philosophy of the state disaster assistance program was not to be funding the rural electrical co-ops, and it was designed to assist county government and city government, township government get restored after a disaster. So in collecting these details through our area, some of the highlights are the city of Jordan has an estimate that's over $120,000 worth of damage through damage to public infrastructure and the cost of the emergency actions that were taken as the ice jams came through the city and forced flash flooding in that city. Minnesota Valley Electrical Co-op actually has damages about $230,000. We're seeing throughout townships a number of township roads that have been damaged and are going to need repair, and then some emergency actions that have been taken through the county and through the cities. So our total estimate right now is for about $620,000 of damage and emergency costs that has been sustained within Scott County. Our threshold to meet the state disaster account or disaster fund is to exceed $245,000. So we're well beyond that standard. 2 weeks ago, I told you that I'd considered declaring a disaster at that point in time, but wanted to delay that. We simply didn't have enough, what I felt, credible information about what the actual damage was. And once we do enter a declaration of a state of emergency, we have a finite amount of time to take some actions with the state and with our reporting that comes up to the state to make sure that we properly become eligible for reimbursement. We're there now. I'm very confident that we're well beyond the state and even the federal disaster threshold. However, the state of Minnesota right now does not have enough cumulative disaster costs that the state is expected to be able to request a presidential disaster. The state needs $7.9 million in total damages, and we're not there as a state. So Scott County still has the option through the state disaster assistance program to make a request for state disaster assistance, at which point we'd be eligible for a 50% reimbursement of our emergency costs and damages. If we do collectively get above the federal threshold as a state, again, not expected to happen, but if that does happen, we would then become eligible for 75% FEMA funding. The state disaster assistance program would then provide the 25% match. So we would actually be able to recoup almost all of our expenses related to the flooding event. At this point in time, I'm going to ask for action. We do need to declare an emergency during the flooding event. So if we were to wait till the next board meeting, with the way that the rivers are rapidly stabilizing and moving down, Scott County may actually fall outside of the disaster window, and we can't declare a disaster after a disaster's passed. So we have to declare while we're in that window. If we wait too long and we're considered to be outside of the damage window, we can't go back and say we want to declare for what happened. We are ineligible at that point in time for any state or federal disaster aid. So today is an important time to make that decision. The disaster declaration does open a 30-day window for additional emergency actions. It does grant the county the authority to take some emergency actions and bypass some traditional contracting requirements, specifically for emergency actions. I don't anticipate that we'll utilize that as the emergency actions, at this point in time at least, are reduced and a need for that is reduced. But that's one of the reasons why we would traditionally declare a state of emergency. I will also clarify that emergency actions are just that. It's things like debris removal, getting the ice out of the creek, for example, in the city of Jordan. That was an emergency action. Putting people in emergency shelters falls under an emergency action. The protective measures that we have to do, like putting up road barricades to make sure that roads are closed so we don't have citizens drive through flooded roads. Again, those fall under protective actions. The emergency actions does not extend to rebuilding roads. When we get to the point of rebuilding roads, we still need to follow a normal procurement process and follow the rules of the county. If we don't do that, we're not eligible for reimbursement. So the short-term immediate actions we take, a declaration does allow us to exceed or go outside of the normal procurement process. Again, with where we're at right now, I don't actually anticipate that we'll need to utilize that. But actual reconstruction projects do need to follow normal procurement rules to be eligible for funding. So the disaster declaration that I'm asking for today does establish the process and the steps for us to make a request to the state of Minnesota to start the reimbursement or the assistance program process for Scott County. And the steps that will be taken after the declaration would be signed would be that I would be presenting that to the state through our proper process through the State Homeland Security Emergency Management Director to request from Governor Walz the beginning of the disaster assistance process. The state will then come through and work with us to really confirm the numbers we have from damages in state-run preliminary damage assessment, and then upon confirmation that we've exceeded the minimum requirement of the $245,000 damage, then we would become eligible to start the reimbursement process from the state for up to 50% of the cost of our emergency actions and damages. So at this time, I'm open to questions from the commissioners. Otherwise, the action item I'm requesting is the adoption of the Declaration 2019-047, the declaration of a state of emergency in Scott County.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2019-046.
Thank you.
47. I'd second 047.
It's not on the screen, it's just right here.
I'm sorry, 47.
47.
Get that screen fixed.
It's been moved to adopt resolution number 2019-047. Is there a second?
I'll second that one, yes.
Right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions?
Nice work.
And we hope that you won't need to. We hope the waters will go down and it won't rain very much, but you'll be back if we need to extend this beyond the 30 days.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to committee reports and commissioner updates. Commissioner Ulrich, would you get us started?
Sure.
You're not Commissioner Beard, Commissioner Ulrich.
Yes,
Thank you.
On the 20th, I attended the Transportation Advisory Board. Then later that same day, I attended the Ertz Neighborhood Open House in Savage. It was well attended, good information, good presentation. That project is, I think, going to the Savage Planning Commission in first part of April here, I think actually in a couple days.
Thursday.
Pardon?
Thursday.
Thursday, okay. And it's moving forward. It anticipates that it'll take about 10 months to build. So maybe a year from now, we'll be looking at a complete facility. That's exciting. I had a friend that was having some difficulty. Had to go to a bed in New Ulm, you know, for some time. And he would be in Savage if it was next year. So that's good. On the 21st, I attended the Three Rivers Park District meeting. Our meeting, two of us meet with representatives from Park District. On the 24th, I led jail church services. 26th, the Live, Learn, Earn Steering Committee. And later that same day, the Fish Outreach and Partner Relations Committee. Fish is going to hold a open house in every one of the cities starting this, I think it might be May or June. I don't know when our first one starts, but we're going to go to every city, and it's going to be for existing fish partners and also anybody that would like to consider becoming a fish partner. I think we're hoping we can call this like the mayor's tour and have the mayor of each city be one of our sponsors, and then we'll also be looking for other co-sponsors, whether it's a Rotary or a chamber or whatever, but we'll have one of those in each city. And then I did mention that we're also going to have a couple times a year, Fish has had a gathering with the faith community as a part of our partner network, and talked specifically about their role in the Fish Partner Network. And we decided we're going to not have one this spring, but have the bigger one in the fall, and that's where we'll have hopefully the state of the county and with the presentation to the faith community. And then, so that's what's up with Fish. The 28th, I attended the Fish Board, and then later that day, the Citizens Advisory Committee Education Night. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Ulrich, just questions, the Ertz open house, many concerns?
There was, I would say, 3 or 4 kind of from the same concern. There was, right in that immediate area, there's a VFW, and they were concerned that, they were actually concerned if they would disrupt their facility more than their facility would be disruptive on them. And the project is constructed in such a way that there aren't windows to rooms on that end, and there's a barrier, there'd be some kind of a cedar fence, I think, and so they were concerned that lights would come in and just it wouldn't be compatible, and so, but
that was addressed.
The concerns
Good.
were addressed, yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Beard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the 19th, we had played host to entourage from the Metropolitan Council. We got to get reacquainted with the new Metropolitan Council chair, and we had a tour of several facilities in the Scott County area. That evening, I attended a reception at the Kelly Inn, which featured our cooperatives, including Minnesota Valley Electric. It was nice to see them there and get reacquainted with some of those good folks. On the 21st, I attended a reception at the Scott County Historical Society for the retiring Executive Director, Kathy Clare. On the 22nd, I attended, or had a breakfast, hosted one of the new members of the Shakopee City Council, Angelica Contreras, and got to know her a little bit and talk a little bit about the city-county interface. On the 25th, I attended the Transportation Alliance meeting in St. Paul. On the 28th, a ribbon cutting at a new business in Shakopee. I think it was Kramer Chiropractic was the name. And then, as mentioned, the Citizens Advisory Volunteer event that night in this boardroom. And then on the 29th, I had breakfast with the county administrator, which I greatly enjoy, always catching up on what's happening in Scott County and how I can help. That's my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the 19th, the Met Council tour in the ribbon cutting, I didn't make most of the tour. I had another thing going on. But then that afternoon, I met with the Elk River Market, the mayor and our county administrator and their economic development advisor. Just go over a few things that are going on out there. On the 20th, we had our insurance committee meeting, and things are looking pretty good there. There's a couple changes that were made, and how some dollars were being spent, and it's actually paying off. I took the defensive driving class that afternoon, and I failed. I'm a better offensive driver. I'm kidding.
Put that on the record.
Yeah, I know. I can hear it already. Anyhow, Then we had the Township Association meeting that night. Thought that went pretty well. A lot of real good questions, a lot of good discussion. Then on the 21st, the Historical Society, I was there for a little bit to say hi to Kathleen Clare, who is retiring. Must have missed you, Commissioner Beard. On the 22nd, met with Chris Kostick, the chairman of the Credit River Town Board, also with our administrator Leslie Vermillion. Had some good conversation about what's going on out in that area. On the 25th, can't read my writing. Oh yeah, I met with the administrator, Leslie Vermillion, talk about just a few more items that are going on here in the whole county. Then the WMO, the Watershed Management Organization, met. On the 26th, I met with the Elko New Market Mayor. On the 27th, we had a mosquito control meeting and went over some budgeting things, and we actually had to continue that meeting. But then on the 28th, the Vermilion River Joint Powers meeting, we had that. Then the Citizen Advisory Night that night. The 29th, we continued the mosquito control meeting, and because we were doing the review for our administrator there, Stephen Manweiler. And last night we had, I was at the Prior Lake City Council. They had a workshop on economic development. They've got a couple nice businesses that are thinking on locating in the Prior Lake area. And in Cedar Lake Township had their meeting, and it's pretty quiet out there. So that is the end of my report.
Thank you. On March 19th, I was involved with the meeting and bus tour with the Met Council reps. I feel like that went really well. Thank Deb and Leslie for setting that up. It was a good afternoon. On March 20th, I had the University of Minnesota Extension Committee meeting, and then later that evening, the Scott County Association of Townships spring meeting. Again, thanks to Leslie and Michael Thompson and Perry for presenting at that meeting and being there to answer questions of the township officers. March 21st had the MELSA meeting. The major areas with that board is the hiring of a new executive director for MELSA, and then the work on at the legislature for increasing basic library aid. March 25th, County Administrator Vermillion and I met with Chairman Vig and Administrator Bill Rednicki of the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community, just for an informal meeting to talk about kind of big picture cooperation and update each other on our jurisdiction's activities. March 26th had the chair-vice chair meeting. March 27th, the county and court policy meeting. We spent a lot of time at that meeting talking about the current work with veterans and the kind of informal veteran court and how that could grow to become something more formal. March 28th was the Citizen Advisory Committee workshop, and this morning before the board meeting, I met with our 5 new employees. That's the end of it is not the end of my report. I also wanted to let my colleagues know that we received a letter from the Scott County Fair thanking us for the funds that they received from the county. And hoping we have this year's fair on our calendar, July 24th through 28th. That's the end of my report.
Okay.
On to County Administrator update.
Madam Chair, just a couple items. One is that Future Leaders Day is coming up on Friday, April 26th, where we'll have a lot of excitement here in the courthouse with all the youth learning about county government. Then April 30th, you have your third of 3 strategic planning workshops, and this will be in Belle Plaine City Hall. We've been trying to get around the county. Their library isn't quite big enough, but in the City Hall, and the strategic portion will be from about 8 to 1, and then Mr. Lenz needs from about 1 to 2:30 to talk about the budget and updates on those types of things in the process moving forward. So it'll be a lot of work that day that we have to get done. And then finally, just one point to Commissioner Beard about parking. We are working on a communication plan for that as the project starts to near here in June. There'll be things on the website. We'll be using social media. There will be temporary signing put up around the facility here. Okay. And the timing of that will be as it gets closer to it, so people then know when they come that the changes are actually taking place. We've also been working with the churches, for an agreement for some permanent parking there. I think a good partnership moving forward. Shakopee Schools is working with us to be able to use West and Central during the summers, and both are walkable or vanable and have a partnership there. St. John's Lutheran Church is working with us to allow parking to the south of us here on their parking lot on many days that would be available. And then finally, the auction house to the north of the law enforcement center. So it's during the construction period that we're most worried, because we have to handle about 100 additional vehicles probably. And as 4th Street does close down between Atwood and Fuller there, it will also allow for some equipment to move and some of where the contractors will park. So it is a big effort, and there will be a communication plan for that moving forward.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. County Attorney, do we have a need to recess for a meeting?
Madam Chair, we do not.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Any other business to come before the board?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Oh, you get it. That's- he gets it.
It's been it's a weird day. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same side.
Nay.
Motion carried.